Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. We're back with Sermon 29, finally, at last. My name is Rotten Deadite, and with me today are...
I am James, also known as Aramithius.
I'm Andrew, also known as the White Guar.
I'm Zels.
And she's known as Zels.
And I'm known as Zels.
And, Sermon 29 today. It's been a long road leading up to this one. And this, if you are not familiar with the 36 Lessons of Vivek, then this is not the way to do it. But I'll let you know that this is probably one of the stranger sermons because of how unlike the other sermons it is, and how... puzzling it is. I don't recall off the top of my head the name of the guy. I got one point or other got in touch with the guy who broke the... Okay, so Sermon 29 has a hidden message in it. It is, in fact, a hidden message that leads to each number at the end of each line leads to a word in each of the individual lessons, and that those words, when put together, spells out a secret message. And the guy who broke this on the official Bethesda forums actually got in touch with me a few years ago, and we sort of shot the shit about like what the forums were like back then, and so on. And he said that his recollection was that he found it after either Kurt or Kirkbride gave him a nudge in the right direction, and. I can see that is probably necessary, because there is a clue in Sermon 29, and we'll get to it, about how to... Actually, I'll just start with it. About what's going on here, but that clue is obtuse, which is specifically the last couple of lines in Sermon 29. The presence of deaf witness, this is what the numbers are. They hang onto the Arbus as the last nostalgia of their godhood. The effigies of numbers are their current applications. This is folly as above. To be affixed to a symbol is too certain. So that last sentence is basically them saying, hey, it's this, you're supposed to take each of these numbers and affix them to a symbol. In other words, a word. And
when I talked to Kirkbride about this years ago, he mentioned that it was Kurt that did all the counting.
Yeah.
Like with just a pen, just spending hours just counting words.
Well, he said there were also at least two sermons, or at least one sermon he could think of, where he had to change a word, he had to change a sentence around to get the word in. They needed a specific word, and it wasn't in that sermon, so he had to add a sentence in to get it to it.
Gotcha.
So the scripture of the numbers, let's start with where we left off last time in 28. The ruddy man, the carapace of memory, that is one of Vivek's children, has been fashioned into if you imagine like a... God, I wanted to say a coffin of sorts. It's been fashioned around a sage of the numbers room, which is... I don't think we actually get told anything about the number room. If I maybe they mentioned it in ESO somewhere, but I haven't found it.
I can't recall any reference to a number.
Yeah, I don't know either. But
Yes.
the ESO writers are really great about digging stuff out like that. But yeah.
Before we get too far into it, can someone else please put the bingo up? Because I'm locked out on my Twitch account at the moment.
There you go. Got it.
Excellent.
Damn it, you beat me.
Haha. And so they've wrapped a sage in the pieces of the ruddy man, and then wrapped holy resin drawn from the carcasses of now useless numbers between 12 and 13, and created what we effectively are calling a sensory deprivation tank. And that's relevant because there are other references to sensory deprivation in the 36 lessons and in other parts of Elder Scrolls lore.
I think, didn't we talk about that in Sermon 28 a little bit? I think
we did briefly. The idea of separating all your senses away from sensory deprivation is something that some mystics, I'll say, are into in modern... I guess I'm going to use the phrase modern magic. in that they find it easier to enter into a oneness with the universe, if you will, if they are able to cut off or mute the sensory input that they're receiving through their body.
It's a tool for altered consciousness.
Yes. Thank you.
We did put, there was a while back
Psychonauts. Yep.
In Jedi's Discord, there was at one point an article that someone essentially went on a Buddhist retreat that was basically silence for 3 days, and by the end of it, he was basically having what you would medically call a psychotic episode.
Yeah.
Because part of him wasn't sure what was him and what was the rest of the world, and whether there was any distinction anymore.
Yeah. And
that sounds really similar to what happens in a stroke.
I was about to say, yeah, coma is the other explanation for sensory deprivation. If we're thinking about the Godhead as somebody who is, breaking apart inside, then maybe that's part of it. Is what
I like that. That jives a lot with the kind of cosmology I have in my head.
Yeah, it's also something that Coda says something along the lines of that people subjected to, or something like suspended in sensory deprivation or immersed in sensory deprivation, something like that wording. And they start to hallucinate a few minutes after, 87 minutes after or something like that. I can't remember the number exactly, but...
is that Love Letter?
It might be the Love Letter.
Why was there a reason you said stroke specifically?
There was a TED Talk I recall seeing a couple of years ago. There was this gal who was a brain researcher, and she had a stroke. And she had talked about how fascinating it was as a brain researcher to experience the stroke firsthand. And she was able to identify when she was no longer able to distinguish herself from the world around her. She could no longer, she wanted to call 911, but she couldn't read the numbers on the phone. And it had to do with a fusion between her left and right brains. And that created this very strange altered consciousness. And she talked to, I don't remember her name.
Okay.
But did you find it?
No. But that's just reminding me of Kantian epistemology, just for a very, very brief digression. But because the way that Immanuel Kant imagined the world to be is that the idea was that you experience the world through the manifold of intuition, is the way that Kant put it. So you are just being bombarded constantly with sensory perception. And that is the manifold of intuition. In order to separate all of these bits out and to make sense of it all, you need to apply the forms of intuition. And the forms of intuition are space and time. But according to Kant's recollection, they are transcendentally real. They are not something you get from the sensory perceptions on the outside. They're a thing that your brain imposes on the sensory perceptions that you are experiencing. Because if you try to imagine anything without space and time, you can't. It's something that's pre-programmed into your consciousness, was the way that it was going. So there's the idea of space and time being the way that everything is kind of built together, but you don't have a complete picture of reality at that point. You've then got, because you basically got, instead of this undifferentiated mush that's just, say, screen, wall behind screen, or microphone in front of screen, whatever, you can't do that with just the forms of intuition. You just have objects and some rough relations within the sense of space and time. But in order to say that is a microphone, that is a screen, that is a keyboard, that is a wall, whatever, you need to be able to identify those forms and say, and so Kant labeled that as the application of concepts, which is again a mental thing. So a large part of how we process the world is all to do with the stuff that's inside our own skulls. It's not to do with the actual messages that we're receiving.
Didn't Aristotle say something? So I think it was Aristotle, but I have Galileo in my head for some reason. where things like color and taste, those do not exist without a living creature to experience them.
Yes, you're talking
Yeah.
about the difference between phenomena and noumena.
Yep.
Yes.
Noumena are the things in themselves. Phenomena are the perceptions of those things.
Technically, to our brains, everything is a symbol.
Yeah. I guess this is the point of the Matrix, isn't it?
I was immediately going to go to
Yeah.
Morpheus and the what is real?
You think you're breathing air right now?
You think that's air you're breathing?
If you're talking
boy.
about if you're talking about what you can see, touch, and smell, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Yeah.
And,
And
physicists
blonde,
are
brunette,
toying
redhead,
with the
yeah.
idea that we're all living in a hologram. So
Yes.
Yes.
Well, there's also, I think, brain theory is another thing that's bringing up the idea of holograms. But multidimensional data in two-dimensional media is what the hologram theory is, which is, I think you've just literally heard all that I know about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so the idea here is that I should also mention that when certain mystics will talk about separating themselves from their from the sensual realm, from their senses, it allows them to leave their self behind and connect through in a much more personal and mystical way with God, and that's supposed to be the which is Dayquil, which is
The chat has broken.
I am
Chris.
never going to see that lady in the red dress the same way. Johnny, thank you so much for that. That has made my life better.
So the idea that I have is that the sage wrapped up in a sensory deprivation tank is now allowing that sage to communicate directly with divinity, either God or mystical, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Something close to, but they didn't get there.
Well, sort of. They did access a truth.
Yes.
Kind of.
Jesus.
Oh no, the chat's just the chat's just going off on Matrix references. For those of you listening in the podcast, the chat has taken the idea of Vivek in the Matrix and run with it.
Yeah.
And it's breaking us.
Okay, so the numbers that we get in Sermon 29 are supposedly the output of this dreaming machine that Vivek has created.
Mm-hmm.
And whether Vivek intended it or not, this is also now the this is also sort of like revealing truths, if you will, about reality and about Vivek. So that's where we get the scripture of the numbers, which are the numbers that this sage has spit out. And the sermon begins with each sermon is now effectively labeled the tower. Their titles. We believe. I should mention that while there are 36 sets of numbers, or 36 numbers, and there are what appears to be titles next to them, that doesn't necessarily mean that that each line is a title for that sermon. But it is possible to interpret them, at the very least at the beginning, like titles for these sermons, and that's kind of the more popular way of approaching the description of the numbers.
I mean, we can probably apply them as labels just for lack of out of a desire to not use numbers. Oh yeah, the scarab sermon. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Although I'm curious if we're going to follow that logic as to how Sermon 1 is a dragon break, because it's not the red moment.
Yeah, but it is the tower. So we can talk about the.
That's just because it's 1.
Well,
it's not anything
true.
To
See, that's the other. The other way to interpret these is that the title of 1, the dragon break or the tower, could theoretically be the title. It could be the title of the number 1. So the number 2, the enantiomorph, could be about, like, the number 2 is the enantiomorph, the number 3 is the invisible gate, the number 4 is the corners of the House of Troubles.
Yes.
Makes a lot of sense as well. However, things get, if we approach that in the and what we're doing at this point is we're building a system of numerology in the Elder Scrolls universe. If that is the case, then and in my opinion, I think that's the way we ought to approach today, is that each of these numbers are being explained by their titles. If we approach them that way, then when we start getting, like, after about the midway point around Sermon 18 or so, things get fuzzy. And
Yes.
but we'll get into that. So one is the dragon break or the tower. So the tower, so we've covered this before. When you turn the wheel sideways, you see the eye, which is also the tower. This is a vertical line, and therefore the number 1 makes a lot of sense as a 1. But it is also, when we talk about the dragon break, we're talking about what the dragon break's been referred to as like a reference back to the beginning stroke, I think, or something of the universe. The first brush with Anu and Padme, the beginning place.
Yeah, all of those metaphors are in Vex teaching.
Yes. And so, and I should also mention that a lot of the numerology that I'm going to be trying out here is going to be in reference to Vex philosophy. And if you stray outside of that, then maybe if we can find meaning, then terrific. But I don't know.
Yeah, 'cause I know the Altmer have a lot of numerological stuff, especially from ESO, but it doesn't quite.
Yeah, it doesn't quite gel,
either.
like the whole sort of thing of 5 being a hand and stuff.
Yeah.
It does, from Altman numerology, does not fit.
Like
in
2
the
and
same-
3 are usually pretty good, but
Yeah.
those are pretty easy. But once you get, to like 9, it gets weird.
So
Yeah, true.
one is also I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and Hendris is saying that could be the beginning convention in the first tower, which is
Yes.
It's
The first moment, the first tower,
the first number, beginning of everything. Yeah.
So there's
it's also where you start in any kind of philosophical research. You have to know thyself is the first rule, and so you start with yourself and then you work out from there. Yeah,
it's a number that represents loneliness or individuality. So when we get to the enantiomorph, we're talking about 2 1s. The addition of 2 single objects, and then an enantiomorph is, of course, the addition of 2 chiral opposites. So you can interpret that as being an addition.
So what you're saying is 2 is 11.
Yeah. So then, well, we'll get to it. Yeah, because we'll get to 11 in a minute.
Yes, we'll get there.
3 is the invisible gate or Alm Civi. This is, of course, a reference to the invisible to the door at the center of the tower, et cetera, the invisible door, the secret door, excuse me. That is the triangular gate is also a metaphor for Alm Civi as well.
Yep.
And there's 3, I am Seti and Vec, so we got another 3. So far, easy going, right? 4 corners of the House of Troubles. Yeah, no problem. Dagon, Malakath, Bolakbal, and Sheogorath. Then 5 is the corners of the world. We know this from earlier in these sermons. Vivek refers to the corners of the world, the world having 5 corners. We've talked about the Da Vinci's thing that and then and since the Nern is sort of considered to be like the body of a god, then that's 6 is the 6 walking ways. We've talked at those ad nauseum. Everybody knows 6 walking ways. 7 is the sword at the center. So this is a little tougher. Sermon 7 is not really relevant in content. So when we start getting to these larger numbers, we can start doing things like real numerology, where we start adding things together. 7 being the sword at the center, I should mention that this is a metaphor used earlier.
Where?
35 talks about the religious elite is not a tendency or a correlation. They are dogma complemented by the influence of the untrustworthy sea and the governance of the stars, dominated at the center by the sword, which is nothing without a victim to cleave unto. So this is the concept of we brought up the sword before as a metaphor in Vivek's system. So it's division. It's a sword at the center means that it is a dividing force or a
wedge.
A wedge, sort of.
Yeah, it's also a way for Vivek to sort of big himself up or herself up, because just looking for this references to at the center that comes up with Sermon 13, and Vivek declares, "I am the sword." So the sword at the center of the universe.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead, Zels.
Oh, I was just agreeing.
Oh, I had an idea a long time ago. I don't know how valid I think it is, but I had this idea that if we think of the wheel as a spider web with 8 spokes, with Mephalos at the center. Who usurped Mephalos' space in Vivek? Well, that would be Vivek. So if Vivek is at the center of all things, Vivek is also at the center of the Almsavy, being both male and female, serving as both warrior and poet. I like the idea that the sword of the center represents Vivek herself. And then even going further, the division down the center of Vivek, the gray and the gold, is there an inherent violence in that, in the meeting of two opposites? Is that perhaps a metaphor that's under the metaphor?
Well, the enantiomorph is often called an act of love, but also an act of violence by Vivek. So love is violence and other things,
Possibly the other one that's more intriguing with that, if you look at Sermon 13, you have the Sharmat sleeps at the center. So
then, can we make a connection between the sword and the hortator?
Oh, yeah.
Because in that case, if we can't differentiate between the hortator and the Sharmat without Vivek. So what I'm seeing is kind of a shell game here. Pieces moving around and being conflated with each other.
Yeah, between the one and the one. Yeah, it could. Yeah.
Who is it that's really at the center? Is it Vivek? Is it the hortator? Is it the Sharmat?
And Vivek can be at the center and still need to be destroyed, because part of what his long-term plan is Almsavy is not going to last, but Vivek will. And so he is going to have to be destroyed in his current form. He has to outlive the rise of Dagoth-Ur and the fall of the power that will kill the rest of them. So
are you perhaps suggesting? Are you suggesting that Vivek is the meat that needs to be cleaved?
In some ways, yeah.
Or the fat, you mean? Yeah.
And the way you say it, meat. I mean, in order to be a real god, quote unquote, he's got to shed the mortal part of it.
Because what was the phrase that was used? I think, Chris, you said it earlier about the sword cutting through or without something to cut through. The sword is nothing. Right.
Well, you could also think about the sword is nothing without something to cleave, and it's you could also think about it back to the subject earlier about sensory deprivation. If you don't have the ability to differentiate between things, and you can't envision anything. So to be able to divide myself from everyone else is the first step to individual self-identity, Anyway,
and Vivek really has an edge with that kind of juggling, because I do think that, part of the magic of Vivek is holding contrary things at the same time. We were talking about before the violence of those two things being in opposition, but Vivek in Vivek, there is a resting state between them. They are both true at the same time. In chat, someone was saying earlier about the Vivek Vivek couldn't be the woman in the red dress in the Matrix, because red is truth in the Matrix, and that doesn't quite sound like Vivek, but Vivek is both truth and a lie at the same time, which is why he's perfect for the woman in the red dress.
Good old Matrix lore.
Yeah.
So 8, the wheel or the 8 givers, this is either the wheel of the Arbus or the 8 Aedra, which are, there's 8 of them. Yay. 9 is the
wheel
missing.
and the 8 givers are the same thing.
Yes. The number 9 is the missing, which is Shazar or Lorcan. 10 is the 10 tribes of the Altmer, which I don't know shit about. It's possible, I think UESP is suggesting that there are 10 different types of mare. Could be, yeah. I'm sure if you tried counting them out, you'd get contradictory numbers. Yeah, I don't know.
I was wondering that too.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to figure out 10.
Well, in fairness, Vivek does use Altmer as a stand-in for various things, like the whole Altmer of the Sea and all that.
Exactly, yeah, drag. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's quite keen on just slapping the label Altmer around. So yeah.
But
maybe
the problem
it's a denigration.
It could be. The problem with 10 is that it's sitting right before 11, which is very distracting to me. I'm all about Sermon 11. The number of the master, this is the inelegant number that Vivek has mentioned before. It's 2 towers sitting next to each other, but not combining together into an enantiomorph. It's tension, in other words. It's violence without resolution. Yeah, Chad, if you guys want to try to count out all the different types of mare, I'd appreciate it. I don't think we're going to get to 10. I'm going to warn you right now. We're either going to get to not 10 or we're going to get to not 10. We're going to get to less than 10 or more than 10, but I guarantee you there aren't 10. I just don't think things are that neat. The reason why it's called the number of the master is because mastery is required to combine opposites. Vivek will go on and on and on about how incredibly difficult this is because, of course, Vivek loves to talk herself up, and that a true master is able to resolve conflict between 2 towers, between 2 individual opposites, etc. So that's why 11 is called the number of the master, which is where you just sit sort of. It's sitting between these 2 fighting forces and combining them together, or resolving the. I should say it's resolving the conflict. It doesn't mean peaceful resolution. It just means a resolution of some kind.
It's being the observer in an antimorph, basically. Just
they're 10-player races. Oh, that could be a thing.
Yeah. There's.
I
mean, always, maybe not, but.
Yeah. So 12 is the heavens?
That I find intriguing because I had this realization while I was reading through it. Is this a reference to the 12 worlds? Is what
could
I'm
be.
thinking.
Yeah, the 12 known worlds. It could be.
Not the known worlds.
I was going to say the 12 constellations, yeah.
Constellations. Because the 12 known worlds immediately makes me go to that list that lists out Nern amongst the planets in the sermons, which doesn't feel quite right.
Right.
But I was more thinking of the Anuad 12 worlds. But
yeah, and there are 14 constellations total, which means 11 constellations minus the King, the Rebel, and the Mage. So,
okay.
14 total?
14 total, I think so, yeah. The Apprentice, the Atronach, the Lady, the Lord, the Lover, the Mage, the Ritual, the Serpent, the Shadow, the Steed.
There are three major constellations, and each of those
13.
has 3 charges.
Yeah, 13, so...
And then the Serpent is part of none of them, right?
Yes.
That's right, so then that's 12.
Yeah, it comes to 13, yes.
It comes to 13 with it, but 12 with the invisible serpent.
Exactly, yeah. And the serpent is the next.
Yeah, and the serpent is 13. So I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. 14 is the King's Cough. Anybody want to take a guess?
No way.
Yeah. People have UASP suggests that this is related to Thum, which is a very good guess.
Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah. But why 14?
I mean, it makes it sound like a negative thing, which
Yeah,
makes,
exactly. It sounds like an
the-
illness.
well, yeah, like the same kind of cultural schism that, like, for example, in the United States, radioactive stuff equal loud. Radioactive stuff creates superheroes, but in Japan it creates Godzilla.
Right.
So two different views of effectively, nuclear radiation, which makes sense given World War II.
Yeah.
So the same kind of thing. If the Dunmer and the Nords are, I mean, they've been at odds forever. So the idea that the Thu'um, they're powerful, they're trying to, trivialize it into a cost.
How many tongues does Vivek face when they're fighting against the Northern Men?
Yeah. Now,
I don't think it's as many as 14, but that's where my mind immediately leaps to do for a thing to check for an association with the Thu'um.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the number 14 I'm having trouble with.
Yeah.
Be twice 7, 2 times
There's
the
a
sword.
list
Hang on.
of
Herald.
There is,
of the Nordic King.
if I remember correctly, it's Harold Handfree was the 13th descendant of Ysgramor. Was Harold Handfree the same thing as the first historic Nordic king? I can't remember whether there was another Harald, but because the first historic Nordic king is the 13th descendant of Ysgramor. So I don't know whether that would. Who was the king after Harald? If we're going to link that with, I can't remember. I'm going to have to look that one up because that does strike me as a distinct possibility. Next ruler was Hjalmar, who I don't think did anything particularly impressive. Ruled for a year before dying, and then Viraj the Gifted ascended to the throne, and I think I want to say that Viraj the Gifted was the one who started to. No, it was the 15th king of the Nords who expanded the empire into Morrowind. So I'm not sure that quite works.
Yeah, I mean, unless there were some kind of, hey, we liked your predecessor better or something like that. But that seems like a little too much put into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's a stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, when I see the number 14, I think of 2 weeks.
Oh, Hendris makes the point that Hjalmar and Viraj were brothers, so it's not 14 generations from. Or it's not 15 generations from Ysgramor, it's 14 generations. So, yeah, possibly. But, don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think of 14 days as 2 weeks, a fortnight. Not that shooty build a game.
Twice 7, 10 plus 4, so the Tribes of the Altmer plus the Corners of the House of Troubles. That could be as in one of the 10 races, but the worst one. Which be the Nords,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a good fit, is there? Yeah.
No, there is no good fit, but there's a few possibilities.
It does come after the serpent, which is the missing god of men. That's conspicuous. 15 would be the redeeming force if you want to move on. Which, again, the redeeming force, I have no fucking idea.
I don't want to look at the number 14 ever again.
Yeah. Well, 14 is also the sermon where Vivek gets up and starts killing all her children. So.
Yes.
15 is the Charmet. I am the Charmet. I am older than music.
Oh, hang on. Sorry. Just had a sudden realization of about Sermon 14. If we're linking that to Baal and progeny and so on and so forth, if the doctor asks you to cough, what's going on?
Okay.
Exactly.
You gotta make
So
sure
is it something to do with that link to progeny and progenitive force and so on? I don't know. It's just a severe reach, but
is that related to 14?
well, Sermon 14 is slap bang in the middle of the pomegranate banquet where Vivek and Baal make all their children.
Ball fondling, got it.
Yes, Neil, that was exactly what I was thinking.
Yep. So the redeeming force for 15. 3 times the corners of the world.
Yeah.
Well, it's
the Tribunal save the world.
What's I wonder if it's related to the Nerevarine prophecies. The redeeming for because if it's about the Sharmat, the Sharmat is here to. I mean, what does it Dagothur says? I'm here to destroy the false gods and free Morrowind from the Imperial yoke. So is Vivek suggesting that Dagothur could be redeeming the Tribunal by holding them accountable for their sins? I mean, it's we know that Dagothur is a devil figure.
But he's also doing a lot of the things that the Nerevarine / Hortator is supposed to do. That's what he's claiming in that sort of statement. It's it's part of the reason why it's difficult to tell the Nerevarine and the Hortator and the Sharmat apart. Because they're both claiming to liberate Morrowind from the oppressors. They're both claiming to restore the glory of Resdane.
Does Sermon 15 mention the Hortator at all? Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I wonder if it's referencing the Hortator defeating the Sharmat. If that's the redeeming force.
In the middle of the pomegranate banquet, that seems a bit of a weird thing to be doing.
Well, I'm talking about 15.
Yeah, not 14.
Yeah. But the pomegranate banquet goes on until Sermon 16, doesn't it? Or no, sorry. The pomegranate banquet is 12 to 14. Sorry, I'm getting my orders wrong.
Because 15 is the Song of the Sharmat.
Yeah.
So and it mentions the champion Hortator.
Well, when does that head go back to the body?
Is it 15? 14, I think.
Yeah.
It's in 14.
Okay, all right. I was thinking it was later.
Or he is the shingle Hortator. Beware the wrong walking path.
Yeah, if we're linking it to the 36 lessons, then it is the question of, do you want to go with the Hortator or the Sharmat? And which will be the savior is, I think, a relevant question with that sermon, at least.
Oh, wait. There is, I think, in one of the Lost Prophecy, it talks something about it's the 7 whatever. They eat their sin and be redeemed or something like that.
Oh, the 7 signs of the Nerevarine, the stranger, etc. But I don't think that necessarily relates to 15, does it?
No, I'm trying to think of redemption is kind of the
the
word I'm focusing on. Oh yeah,
right.
Binds the broken, redeems the mad. That's the 7th trial.
Okay. Can we connect Sheogorath to 15?
Eats their sins, reborn. He honors blood of the tribe unmourned.
Sermon 11 mentions the ruling king is armored head to toe in brilliant flame. He is redeemed by each act he undertakes.
That almost links it to the idea of the redeeming force as divinity, whatever divinity means in this context.
I'm still thinking. because if we take Coda into mind, it is the Nerevarine that redeems Numidium, right?
By using Numidium to fight. Or by using he was using
I don't know if it's commonly accepted, but the idea that Jubal is a Nerevarine.
I wouldn't necessarily say that it redeems Nerevarine because it destroys it.
Well, the Nerevarine shows up in Coda piloting Akulakan.
Yes.
That's Landfall Day 1, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we think about Civi as inherently corrupt system, and with the poison of Dagoth at the heart, when that finally comes to an end, then and Almsivi falls away, then does that redeem Vivek?
Yeah, see, that's kind of the direction I was prodding at earlier, that the rise of Dagoth somehow redeems the Tribunal. It holds them accountable for their manifold sins.
Yeah.
And so how do we
and then but in that part of that redemption then destroys Almsivi. It destroys Almalexia and Sotha Seal, but then Vivek rises from the ashes of that.
In theory, anyway.
In theory. Yeah. So Vivek likes to tell us.
Yeah. Personally, I think I'm convinced that the redeeming force is the Hortator, or whatever shape the Hortator might take.
Do we see the Hortator in any other point during these 36? I'm not. Well, on a quick skim, I'm not sure we do.
Let me back something up. Let me take a step back for a second and talk about something I probably should have talked about at the beginning of this episode, which is that traditional real-world numerological systems involve math and the combination of concepts to expand on a small set of relatively primitive ideas. I'm talking specifically about the I Ching here. So when we talk about the way the I Ching works, it's setting out patterns of a relationship between two, binary numbers, two opposites. And every time you combine those two together in different forms, you get sort of this base 8 multiplication of ideas. So if anybody wants to Google the Bagua, the 8 trigrams, you'll see an yin yang symbol, and forgive my pronunciation, it's dreadful, and a series of sets of broken line and a solid line, which then represent both the yin and yang parts of the symbol, and then the concepts of these trigrams, the sets of 3 blocks, are determined by what the balance of those forces, right? So let's see here. The solid black line is what? I don't know. Yin, I think. And so all 3 are therefore the receptive field, Earth, Southwest, etc. Why is this not scrolling? Thank you. It represents the mother of a strong feminine force, whereas all 3 solid lines are represent the father, etc. Right? So that's how a traditional numerological system would work. You'd start with a very fundamental set of numbers and then start doing math on them, and you get concepts that spread out of that. So, for example, the number of the master is an excellent example. It's number 11. It's 2 1s next to each other, whereas the enantiomorph is the addition of 2 towers. So then what we can then say is that the number 3 should be a single tower, or a solo object, if you like, and then when combined with a combination, okay, which is Almsivi. It's Vivek as the single object and Set and Ayam as the combined enantiomorph. Okay. So that's how the logic of the first 3 works well. The problem is then you break out of that into the corners of the House of Troubles, which is a 4. It's an even number. It should theoretically be something like 2 enantiomorphs. So if you want to think about like the 2 sides of the 4 corners of the House of Troubles as 2 different enantiomorphs,
Interesting.
See? Or you can think of it as Almsevi plus an additional Dragon Break. I would argue that Almsevi plus a Dragon Break equals the creation of the dragon of Almsevi.
Yes.
That tells me about the red moment and the creation of Almsevi.
Yeah, but the idea of the whole two enantiomorphs, I'm just thinking about because Trinamak and Sheogorath are two corners of the House of Troubles. Trinamak is definitely involved in one and is the blinded witness. Sheogorath is the blinded witness in at least following the events of the Oblivion Crisis.
Okay,
so
sure.
You've got two observers of enantiomorphs in the corners of the House of Troubles. I don't know whether we can necessarily link any of the others any other way.
Yeah, you'd have to start making arguments about how the Molag Bal and Mehrunes Dagon are opposites, or you can those are fairly complex Daedra, so you could probably twist your words around a lot of different ways and get that to happen. But it's not really a slam dunk in the way that these kind of concepts are supposed to be. I am kind of Dominion, domination versus anarchy. Yeah, exactly, Neil. You can kind of you can find these arguments, but the problem with when you're dealing with very, very primal fundamental elements in a numerology system, in a functional numerology system, is that they have to be obvious. It has to be pretty obvious how these things are plugging together, because the more layers you add onto them, the more complex these concepts will get, and the hazier and well, I don't know about hazier, but the more noisy, the more complicated these things will get. So if you don't start very fundamental, then you'll end up in that situation. The reason why the 36 lessons numerology doesn't work is because nobody in their right fucking minds is going to create a working numerology system for a fictional universe in a week.
There's not a valid wage for that.
There's no way in hell you can budget for that shit in your world building budget. That's years of work of getting lots of mystic what do you call it, comparative religion people together and philosophers and shit.
Maybe if you used AI to put it together.
It would be unbelievably difficult to get that to put it all together into a way that functionally works. But if you did, you'd be a fucking hero, and your game had better goddamn sell, because all that work will just fizzle right out if you end up with.
As much as I don't like the idea of using AI to
do anything,
for actual.
I'm
right,
very
Neil.
curious.
It's the beauty of the I Ching is that it
asked,
fucking makes sense. It works. It works really well. Yeah.
I would be very, very curious what happened if you kind of fed 36 lessons into ChatGPT.
People have done
and then asked it to pump out a numerology system.
People have. Oh, well, I don't know about that. Yeah. Okay. That would be
I know
fun.
people have fed the 36 lessons in and then asked it to put out more.
Something I wanted to point out, because you were talking about the two enantiomorphs potentially that are in the House of Troubles. Jiggalag fit in that, because
Jiggalag did not exist when this system was built.
Yeah. And which I don't know, are we started on 16 yet, or are we still talking about 15?
We're still on 15.
We're sailing around 15. Yeah.
Because when 16 comes around, that's one of the main. It says what the acceptable blasphemes, which according to UASP is the princes.
Yeah, and I think that's a good guess. I think.
It's also explicitly called that in the first edition pocket guide.
Okay. Yes, I remember in the backwards text, right at the beginning of the pocket guide. Yeah.
So the issue with that is that we have Jiggalag, potentially a 17th prince, and we have this new one from the most recent Necrom chapter.
Spoilers.
I don't remember what her name is.
Chat, I don't know why you guys haven't brought up Gematria or whatever, however it's pronounced, which is the numerology system of assigning numbers to Hebrew. So, for example,
Yeah.
um,
That thing that supposedly predicted assassination attempts and all sorts.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the art of counting a certain number of letters within
Ophelia, that's right.
within the Torah and stuff, and just getting prophecy out of that.
Well, there's actually a very solid piece of Gematria. Actually, has a lot of it's actually fairly deep. It works fairly well. Like, I'm trying to find, I think it was something like the number, the word for father and mother. When you add them together, you get the number. You get the word for son or child, I think. It's stuff like that. It's really pretty fucking solid. And I think that might have just been something they invented for Pi, though.
Isn't this how they decided to assign Altmer names? Didn't they use a Hebrew naming system?
There was a suggestion at some point that that Altmer named their children in like a numerology system, so that every Altmer has a number that. No, I don't recall that. I believe that there was like a rumor that there was a book, an in-universe book, that said that all Altmer their names actually translated to numbers, which were calculated before their birth, and
kind of like a horoscope.
Yeah, except then another a document somewhere by an actual Altmer said that's horseshit, and that that's just racist.
I recall
nonsense.
a couple of years ago there was a small stir that the naming conventions, like from an outside real world perspective, the way we make Altmer names is by it has to do with the Hebrew alphabet. It has to do with like numbers in Hebrew language. And I've tried to look into that, and I haven't found
the way the
anything.
devs do it.
The what?
The way
the devs do it. I guarantee you the devs were not naming Altmer with a system. I highly, highly doubt that.
Yeah, there's an Altmer named Ladifawe.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
Ladifawe. Oh, yeah. No. Well.
I mean,
whatever.
Because like the Ashlander stuff is all very not Babylonian.
Akkadian.
Yeah, very
yeah.
And as in the city, not Dagoth. All of that. So I like to find the patterns in naming conventions and actually stick a label on them so then we can reproduce it.
Yeah, the issue is that the Altmer have been in a whole bunch of games with a whole bunch of different developers.
I just described them as having complicated Tolkien Elvish names.
That sounds about right.
Yep.
Apparently, the number 15 is one of two numbers that's written differently from the conventions of writing numbers in Hebrew in order to avoid writing the name of God.
Why 15?
Interesting.
From Living Judaism, the Complete Guide to Jewish Belief. Well, I would
15?
assume that the number that writing the number 1
Yeah.
and 5 looks like, or might look like the name, one of the names of God, or it could, etc.
That would make a lot of sense because with 15 that was the redeeming force, right? That was because that would when we just when you approach God, as God is armored head to toe in terror. It's the Numidium, but if that still leads me back to the Hortator. Or perhaps Amaranth by way of Jubal.
Jubal is certainly a redemption story, but I wouldn't say that it's necessary. How can we link Jubal to 15? I'm not sure that that's an easy task.
Because of the name of God.
Because Yahweh?
I mean, if we take the name of God in an Elder Scrolls sense,
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't quite translate in a, because we're hopping that fourth wall there from real world numerology to how can we use that device here. I mean, if we were to assume 15 is related to the name of God in the Elder Scrolls, that would, I mean, God is armored head to toe in terror, has no need of theory, cut both your hands off and all that. Which Jubal fights Numidium by doing all of these things and essentially redeems God by forcing by convincing him to say yes.
Oh, we're talking about redemption, but we missed out force. We've missed out force altogether. Do we want is truth the redeeming force? Because truth is violence, is various other things. Do we want to start thinking about the redeeming qualities of violence and what that might mean?
Or you reach heaven by violence.
Reach heaven by violence.
Yeah.
Is heaven the absolute truth?
Unless we're talking about it, unless we're looking at it that it's the idea of Almcivi and the corners of the world. It's my thought there being Almcivi are earthly things and they reached heaven. It's that I don't know whether that's just too much of a reach.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should move on. My head hurts.
Welcome to 29.
Yeah.
So we'll poke around with it a little around some other stuff anyway. 16 ritual light, we've already got it. 17 the hurling disc. Okay. So 18 less 1 is the hurling disc.
Where's
Hurled to reach heaven by violence.
18. That is in the sermons, but where is it?
That is in Sermon 18. In this world and others, 18 less 1, the victor is the magical disc hurled to reach heaven by violence.
And the hurling disc as a concept has always confused me because I get it mixed up with Nemoli pretty often.
With who?
With Nemoli.
Or the Nemoli.
Nemoli, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nemoli, yeah.
The blue star or whatever that's related to memory.
Yeah. But both Dragon Breaks and the are associated with Dragon Breaks. So so I sort of see them as linked. That the hurling disc is the Arabis in a Dragon Break state.
Because
and hurled to reach heaven by violence is what the Selectives did. They broke the dragon to reach heaven by violence.
Yeah. Wheel also turns on the last Dragonborn in the prophecy. Well, there's a difference between the Arbus and the wheel.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
is the void technically part of the Arbus?
Yeah.
Well, okay. See, the wheel doesn't necessarily contain the. Well, you say the void. Do you mean oblivion? Because the wheel doesn't necessarily contain that.
Yeah,
right.
the rim of the wheel, so to speak.
Yeah.
So if you envision oblivion being the void at the center of Arbus, that the tower Nirn is built in, then the Aedra would be spanning the void to contain, the area that Nirn can be created, right?
Yes.
Right.
That therefore means that the Aedric spokes are bordered on their outside by the rim of the wheel,
Yes.
which can only be Aetherius. At that point, the wheel becomes you think about the wheel as the Arbus. So when you talk about hurling something to reach heaven by violence, what heaven are you talking about? You've already incorporated Aetherius into that structure.
Is heaven a metaphor for divinity in general and godhood? Yeah.
exactly. So what we're doing is we're talking about we don't say that the wheel is Arbus. The wheel is a metaphor for Arbus. Now, I mean, it's Elder Scrolls, so metaphor, reality, same thing. But it's still useful to keep that in mind, because every once in a while the developers or just Kirkbride are going to start talking about things like they're metaphors and not real things.
When it's narratively convenient to be one or the other.
Yeah. So, I wonder if I go back and watch like early episodes of this, I can see the gray coming in.
Maybe you can do a time lapse. Just like one shot from each video.
Elder Scrolls lore ages human. A time lapse of how Elder Scrolls lore has made me old. We're on 17. So, so 18 less 1, the victor. What's the 1?
Yeah.
I have a question about that. Something that's always bugged me. Why is 18 capitalized like it's Elnathay?
Yeah, I have no fucking idea.
I've been
trying to figure that one out too. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, take that apart and figure out, like, is it an anagram for something that's in Elnathex?
Are you talking about Sermon 18?
When it's said in Sermon whatever.
In Sermon 18, 18 less 1, the victor. 18 is capitalized. All caps, I mean.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I see it.
Like it's a magical word.
Looks like there isn't a preview for this page.
Oh.
So even UESP doesn't know what it is.
No. Oh, while we're umming and ahhing and going a bit everywhere, I do want to bring something up that that Andrew mentioned earlier for 15. 7 curses and 7 trials. Many fall, but 1 remains. That gets us to 15.
14 plus 1, but 1 remains 15.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of stretched at that.
Which would make the redeeming force the Nerevarine.
Yeah, I was looking at the Nerevarine prophecies, and there are 2 prophecies that have 7 parts. So there's the 7 curses and the 7 visions. 2 separate prophecies. And then what we see in the very beginning of that first, that intro video in Morrowind, many fall, but 1 remains, which is the end of what I think the Stranger, I think is the that's the last line of the Stranger. So the only Nerevarine prophecy it leaves out is the Lost prophecy.
Anyway.
So that was a thought that I was kind of musing on earlier. I didn't really want to bring it up, but
yeah.
But yeah, if you
no, don't know. That's
Well, 18 is the egg, or 6 times the wise, Vivek. Whatever. So
why is it 6 times?
6 times the wise? What's number 6? The Walking Ways.
Oh, the Walking Ways.
Yeah. Okay. So it's Albsivi times the Walking Ways, which is what Vivek used to reach heaven by violence. And so that results in 18, which is Vivek's number. It is also 18 minus 1 is the hurling disc. So Vivek minus something equals literally the whole Arbus.
And that's why 18 is capitalized. It means Vivek.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
That's it.
But why does what is happening here that Vivek is saying, if you take all of me and then subtract something, 1, the Nerevarine possibly, you get the hurling disc, you get the Arbus.
I almost want to say, is it a nod to foul murder? Because Vivek only becomes a god through the murder of Nerevar.
Okay, so Nerevar is the -1, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah. It does sound pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know whether... No, we don't have a distinct number for the Hortator in this, unless we want to take the leap of 15, but that complicates things and means I'm wrong, so I'm going to say no. Yeah. Yeah, that's a possibility.
It's a good one. 19 is the provisional house. Why, you ask? It's 18, Vivek, in a tower.
Oh.
20 is the lunar lattice. This is probably the Khajiit? Probably.
Yes. Although there are only 16 first stocks.
Yeah. Well, what I'm thinking here is this is the 2 times the tribes of the Altmer.
Oh.
Same.
Okay.
But it's a little weak. Like I was thinking, okay, so the lunar lattice is the idea of the 2 moons, depending on what they're doing, determines first stock, right? But to do that.
So I stand corrected. Hendris is saying that the first edition pocket guide says Khajiit have 20 first stocks.
Oh, hey, well spotted.
Or
over 20. Oh, fuck.
So
we
close.
tried.
What is... At one point or other, somebody worked out all the different combinations of the moon.
No.
Right? Of the phases of the moon, I think.
Yeah, but that winds up being huge, like 42 or something.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay then.
Way more than 20.
All right, forget it.
Because you're essentially squaring the phases of the moon because there's 2 of them. So,
Yeah.
multiply. When I hear the word egg, I think of Argonians as well.
Yeah.
Fair
but
enough.
that's just because I know there's already precedent that Vivek is the egg.
Yeah.
But in the Argonian life cycle, especially if you do the Merkmeyer like calendar thing, it's a collectible bit of furniture you can get. You end up having to collect 12 pieces, and each one represents a month, and they name those months after the life cycle, part of the life cycle for an Argonian. So I think January is essentially egg, for obvious reasons. So I don't know how relevant it is, but when I think of a capital egg, that's what I think of.
So why the lunar lettuce?
Oh, we had moved on.
So-
Yeah.
What does that have anything to do with lunar currency?
There's a skin around Mundus that the Daedra poked holes in. That's how we get the constellations. So is there a name for that skin?
Yes, it's in what's it called? Liminal
Yeah.
something.
We are told that the lunar lattice is the limon between
Right.
Yeah.
And Azura
Where are
has
we told
made
that?
herself the goddess of in-betweens.
Liminal bridges.
So I've always
Yeah.
wondered if she claimed that skin as part of her sphere when she expanded her influence.
the rim of all holes.
Is there any connection between that and the lunar lattice?
Hey, like that, James.
Yeah,
it works. It works is the thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I always
so
thought
the most inane, stupid descriptions of Azura, and it clicks to something like that.
And there's a story about her and Meridia having a fight over something. And Meridia is, I always think of Meridia as the lens over the hole that Magnus made.
Yeah.
She is the thing that makes the light able to like turn back undead and things. That's why the sunrise works that way. So I've always wondered if Meridia and Azura got into a fight when Azura took over that skin. Or when Meridia attached herself to it, one or the other.
Do we have any additional instances of Azura and Meridia being at odds?
There's one reference to it when I did the research that I could find, but I couldn't find anything that explained why. And that was the only thing that I could think of.
Oh, is this one of those kind of Daggerfall? God X is an ally or enemy of other one, and Ebenarm is an enemy of everyone.
I couldn't actually find the original source of it. I just heard people referring to it. And I know that, like, in Khajiit mythology, there's Azura is not on good terms with Meridia. But I don't know what the I don't know what the relationship is between the lunar lattice and that skin.
Yeah.
I know that it is the lunar lattice connects every here to every there.
What is Meridia's Tagra name? Do we?
I don't think she's. Oh,
yeah. I can't recall one because I know stuff. I mean, like Marin's Dagon has one.
Yeah, but that's not. That is that Ta'agra?
I mean, and Azura just with an H on the end.
Is that Ta'agra or is that just?
I mean,
the equivalent
I
of...
call it Tagra because it's the Khajiit pantheon, and Tagra is the language they speak.
I don't think Meridia actually features. Thinking about it,
yeah.
At least not in the retelling from Anisi.
When Meridnunda attacked the lunar lattice, Azura struck her down before the Varlant's gate and dragged her away from it. That's 7.
Okay,
the adversarial spirits is the name of that book.
I misremembered that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is actually referenced in a text.
Yeah. So that's in one of Alan Crow's pieces.
That's Elder Scrolls Online.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is... They don't define the lattice clearly here either.
No. It's never fully defined. It's sort of a barrier to stop Anur getting to...
I think...
Ondas.
I don't remember if it was during one of the Elsewhere expansion, like either Elsewhere or Dragonhold.
Mm-hmm.
But I recall uncovering some real concrete stuff about the lunar lattice and how important it is to the Arbus itself.
Well, if you just search UESP for lunar lattice, you get nothing but references to Khajiit systems.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's a really firm fucking connection there. I mean, it may not have been, but my concern is not, is it now a connection? Did people not just... did somebody in UESP go, lunar lattice, that's Khajiit, and link, and then like all the like ESO lore nerds and writing team went, what's lunar lattice? Khajiit, okay. And then and everybody just went, that's what it is. I don't know.
That could be an example of the lore community and the devs creating a feedback loop with each other.
Yeah.
Well, one interpretation causes another, and then all of a sudden the devs catch wind of it. Oh, I like that. Let's use it.
Well, for the basic connection with the Khajiit, then the Anisi is contemporary with the 36 lessons.
Mm-hmm.
So why the number 20?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
10 times
tribes of the Altmer times the enantiomorph, possibly. As in like races, maybe times the two moons.
I wonder if if they figured out, we know what these certain numbers mean, but if we want to be chronological, we have to have these other numbers too. They don't necessarily mean something.
Poor Pupper.
Yeah, I don't know what you want.
Can the moons be seen as 2 zeros?
I don't know if we've gotten a 0 in. In according to Vivek, the 0 is the beginning place.
Right. So if Lorcan's body is the moons, and there's 2 of them, and he's the missing one, then
he's a 0.
Then then 2 zeros are the moons. I'm so sorry. But you cost me a lot of nights sleep when I first found the whirling school. So
payback.
The problem is that adds up really well. Like that makes a good amount of sense to me, but it's the kind of thing that's going to take me a while to internalize. Because that touches a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And
I can't say that I have followed all of those threads and can,
right. Yeah. That's a lot of threads I'm gonna be pulling on for a minute.
Plus, we already have the Scarab as 30, so we already have a Lorcana's presence within the numbers anyway.
This
Is
makes
he
more
all
sense
of-
than I could think of.
Is he all of the aughts? Is the tribes of
Ooh.
Altmer
10?
anything to do with Lorcan?
20,
20.
30.
No.
Well, that 10, the tribes of the Altmer, that includes mortal races.
Well, it's Lorcan's fault that there are so many races of
Right.
Yeah.
20, the lunar. Oh, fuck.
If
Feels like a
If
bit of a
if
reach.
Kirkbride's watching this right now, he's jumping up and down
because
he's like, it's
if,
God fucking clever.
uh,
Right now,
because
he's emailing somebody going, "I did that shit on purpose."
Unless he's emailing you, it doesn't count.
it was Lorcan's betrayal that led to the Elnafe becoming mortal and having to seek procreation as a form of
Right.
Let me write this down. It's really good.
I was gonna say, we're basically doing your new whirling school homework at this point, aren't we?
What? No, that's not at all what's happening. Why would I do that? I wouldn't do that. So there's been 10, 20, and 30.
I'm
as
happy to egg and abet the Whirling
portal
School. I just want to
force.
say.
Oh yeah,
Or the-
totally. But I'm still gonna call Chris out in the meantime.
Oh yeah. Everybody gets credit. Still tried multiplying. Thought the still tried multiplying zeros when we found him stuck in a loop. That's right.
That's awesome.
I remember that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put etc. because I'm just gonna have to remember what the fuck I'm talking about here. Okay.
It is being recorded.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
there are recordings.
So okay, so 21 is the womb.
Mm-hmm.
Even UASP didn't want to take a guess at this.
No.
So we remember the beginning place. We remember he who enters paradise enters his own mother. We can which is related to the beginning place, so it's the origin. So why 21?
But you use the sword and you pierce the heart of the beginning place.
Mm-hmm. So the sword is number 7.
Yeah.
7 times 3.
Bingo.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So the beginning, so remember, womb ready for the right reaching.
Yes.
That's the invisible gate. The invisible gate is the womb. So the sword at the center pierces the invisible gate. That's why Sermon 21 is
That sounds like sex.
It does. It sounds like tee. It sounds like sex. I'm writing that down because I know I came up with that originally, but I can't remember why, like if I wrote it down or not. So I'm writing it.
Okay.
I just think of that scene in Robin Hood Men in Tights where he's singing to Maid Marian and his sword
Yeah,
is
starts to
going
run.
up,
Yeah.
and it looks like he's got just an enormous
Yeah.
boner.
God, I
It's like,
fucking love that movie.
and then it turns out it's just his scabbard.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the 21st card in the tarot deck is the world, so the world is the womb.
Okay. Yeah.
I like when we bring tarot into it.
Mhm.
All day,
Well,
baby.
Okay. So the symbolic system in the tarot is better, if I recall correctly, and I might not, than the numerology system. Having said that, I don't exactly remember much about the numbers of the numbering of the cards is important, but and like adding them together and stuff. I know that the order that the major arcana comes in is vital, but whatever. There is a way to do numerology with tarot cards, but I do not remember what it was, and I couldn't find a manual to it. And the only, I mean, I have
Maybe you just make it up.
no, I have the problem is that the only, like, I've got Crowley's book on it, and he talks about numerology in it, but he never really lays it out. Like, you have to like read it from cover to cover.
Yeah.
And then and you won't get all the numbers explained to you. He just it's because I have a somewhat dim look of Crowley, so I think that he was like finding, oh look, if you add these together, then this, and isn't that convenient? But then he wasn't doing the hard math to get
Yes.
like the stuff that doesn't line up. He doesn't bring that shit up. So it's just, it's these cherry picks, which is what probably is good at is cherry
could
picking.
could we maybe be describing the Sermon of Numbers here?
Could we what?
Could we be describing the Sermon of Numbers?
Yeah, well, look, I very firmly suspect that, especially towards the end of the Sermon of Numbers, I think that Kirkbride was just putting out words that sounded good to him, or because I mean, again, he had a week.
Yeah,
he had a fucking week, and he I don't even think Sermon 29 was the last one they did, but it was one of the last ones they did,
if I
because
recall,
they had
this is the one. This is the one he said was the hardest. I mean,
right, and I think I'm fairly certain that especially later on, some of these numbers are just going to be like he had the number, and then like he wrote like some words down that looked similar or felt similar or something like that, or that just came to mind because he was just like, I got to get this out the door. Like I think it would be possible to rewrite Sermon 29 now and spend months on it and get like a really tight system of symbolism and so on, and then hand that off to Bethesda, who would look at it and not give a flying rat's ass. Yeah. But it's something you could theoretically do, and I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what kind of good it would do you, but if there's somebody out there who's really fucking bored, it's a thing you can do, treated the sermons like I used to treat essays in school. Yeah. Well, I mean, if I recall correctly, he got contracted to do those books, and they gave him like a very small window of time to write those books, and he blew a lot of time writing a couple of other pieces, and then realized he had to crank out the 36 lessons and wanted to do something really special. So, but he that's why he spent a whole week on it. And at the end of the day, I don't think he actually turned in the 40 books he was supposed to turn in. I think he was only able to do the 36 lessons and a few other ones. So you make something worse by trying to improve on it. Oh, it sounds like the way I paint.
My favorite quote about the writing was one dev locked in a room for 30 hours with a fifth of bourbon.
And all his summoned angels.
And all the angels you could summon, and I totally feel that it is, there's so much in it that works so well that it almost is the essence of inspiration, when all of the stuff that you've got in the back of your head just kind of manages to gel somehow.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the best part about reading the 36 lessons, is you're kind of looking at somebody getting all the stuff that he accumulated in his head during college and just vomiting it out onto paper as rapidly as possible.
Yeah.
So 21's kind of like it's an easy clap kind of thing, and it's one of those things where like you look at like Sermon 20 or 19 or etc. Some of these other sermons, and you just kind of go, well, they should all make that kind of sense, So then you get to 22, the unknown. No, just unknown.
I think maybe he just forgot to title it.
Maybe.
Oh, and one thing, just while I'm thinking, I realized we totally skipped over. Because for 12 and 13, going back to Sermon 28, they run around the carapace and through each other, applying holy resin drawn from the carcasses of the now useless numbers between 12 and 13.
Oh.
So, is there a relation between 12 and 13 here? So, the relation between the heavens and the serpent. And
why are they useless?
Yeah. I just wanted to call that out while I was remembering it. It's entirely out of order, but...
Wait.
There's your awkward silence on bingo.
Can you hear the hard drives clicking? Hold on.
Has anyone gotten a bingo?
Okay, the reason why the reason why the numbers are useless is because Lorcan is gone now.
Okay.
And so his absence means that the numbers associated with him are no longer viable.
Relevant, yeah. And it's also, I also see that it's possibly something to do with the way that the Red Guard cosmology puts it. Because if you think of the 12, I always think of the 12 worlds as the previous Kalpas, the previous world skins, and then it's Sep who balls up everything and bungs it into the current world, which is Mundus, and so the Mundus is the world of the serpent in some way, shape, or form, in the way that the other ones weren't. And spirits can't get back to the previous worlds of Satakal and all the rest of it.
Right.
So the path back between 12 and 13 no longer exists.
That's pretty brilliant.
Okay.
Well, the serpent, can we link that to Lorcan?
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that really works for me.
Numbers, yeah, it does. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I've entirely pulled us out of order.
Yeah, but okay. Unknown for 22. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know. No. I like, that's not anything to go on. Sermon 22's content doesn't really lead me in an unknown direction.
Yeah. Because that's the Treasurewood sword, right?
Yeah. If you look at 20 plus 2, the lunar lattice plus the enantiomorph. Is it
11s? Two inelegant numbers?
Yeah, 2 11s was the first thing I thought of.
Two, that's an idea, Neil. 2 enantiomorphs next to each other.
Yeah, an enantiomorph squared. Well, I don't know whether that really works. But
the lunar lattice plus the 2 moons. The lunar lattice plus.
I mean, the lunar lattice is I think anchored by the moons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where they cling on to.
I wouldn't necessarily say that the enantiomorph, that the 2 moon, that Master and Secunda are an enantiomorph. I wouldn't.
No.
I think they're the divided gods. So it's.
They're also the funeral lamps. I mean, are we going with Joan and Jode here rather than Lorcan?
Oh, I hadn't. Every time I think of the moons, I think about the corpse of Lorcan, not Joan and Jode.
That book was written by Faldrune. Yeah,
well, I'm just saying that the Khajiit do not ever enter into my consciousness. Unfortunately, it's a huge disadvantage. It's a blind spot for me.
Yeah, I love it, but I can't internalize it.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
Michael Ziegler is just screaming at you now.
I know, and I deserve it.
Yes,
because the Khajiit have 4 moons. They have Joan and Jode, and then they have Lord Kaj, and then they have the Dark Moon.
Yes.
Fuck. All right.
Okay, so the number of the master is 11. Could it be 2 masters? Unknown? 2 Viveks?
Well, because when we talk about 11, that's specifically Vivek uses that as a way to talk about the Sharmat and the Hortator.
Right.
If they were to switch places, would you ever know? I can, and that's what you need me.
Yeah.
But if you had 2 of them together, what would happen? And maybe that's what unknown is that this has not happened. Yeah. That's what I also like the idea of Kirkbride was just fucking floundering. It was just I'm just gonna put unknown.
Yeah.
I dig that.
It was 4 a.m. He was done.
Yeah, he's out of bourbon. Fuck this shit. Okay.
It has to happen on one of them, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I think we might actually be able to get this out.
Yeah.
Today. Yeah. Okay.
Let's do this.
23 is the Hollow Prophet. Okay. Well, this is definitely where we're going to slow down.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anything off the top of my... there are actually, believe it or not, relatively few prophets in the Elder Scrolls universe. The Prophet Maruk is a good example.
Because there's Maruk, there's the Prophet from ESO, Michael
Veloth.
Gambon, rest his soul, and Veloth, yep. And then there's fuck, I had it. Oh no, I don't. I lost it again. I was thinking. Go ahead.
What were they prophesying?
Well, there's also Azura.
Yeah.
Azura's a prophet?
Well, Azura
is
inspires
the fount of
prophecy.
prophecy.
Yeah. Who wrote the Nerevarine prophecies?
Yeah, they were given to.
Well, they're interpreted by the clan mothers, right?
Right.
Yes, who received dreams from Azura. That's how she transmits her prophecy. But there's also the whole thing with Arden, or not Arden Sul, Alandro Sul. Where with the Wraith male.
Yeah, Hendris is pointing out that Ridtharidata is also a prophet.
Could Almalexia be considered a prophet? She predicts the future, sort of.
It depends. We don't. That comes down to what what prophecy is. I mean, I think prophecy in the Elder Scrolls is equal to soothsaying. It's not the case of prophecy in the sense of speaking for a god, which is the way it's used biblically.
He's a prophet.
Yeah, we also know next to nothing about him.
Yes, no, we know nothing about the Prophet of Landfall. He's some kind of bug dude, but that's all
and Neil is pointing out Pellinor was a prophet for screwing about Ramon.
Ooh, could he? No, because if he's a robot and he's hollow on the inside, but
that's a thing.
But that doesn't have a lot to do with Pellinor. Like, there's very little, if any, overlap anywhere between the two.
Yeah.
Because we get into the Imperial mysticism versus the Dunmerian mysticism. Just two entirely separate realms. I also thought of, thinking of Hollow, I thought of Ruddy Man as a carapace.
Right. Yeah.
Presumably hollow on the inside.
But he doesn't appear until Sermon 28.
Yeah.
Yeah. Numidium?
Yeah.
The Ash Poet with the hollow head? Which one's that, Johnny? Does Pelton become hollow? Yeah, Arctic Jew, there's a description of Pelnal that he has a hole in his chest that glows red.
Yeah, and it's diagonal, or it's diamond shaped.
It's diamond shaped, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what if he means Veloth? That the hollow in terms of your prophecy doesn't hold the power that it was believed to have. But I don't know how to relate 23 to Veloth.
Yeah.
Ash poets are what Dagothar calls ash. Oh. They have hollow heads. Yeah.
If we remember the early art for a lot of the ash creatures, a lot of what Kirkbride did was like the view divinity caused the head to burst, which has to do with like Greek ideas. If you witness Zeus, you die.
Yeah. Problem is the voice of God makes their heads explode. Went through 5 atoms before we figured that one out.
And then Johnny, the trunk seems to come out as. Personally, I think that's a Hermaeus Mora thing. The idea, what's it called? The star wound, I think is what he is. As there's the drawing of like one of the ash ghouls, and he's got the big hole, and he's shooting like a laser through his face hole.
Is 23 a prime number?
Yes.
Shit. We can only get there by addition.
We can't do fun things with it to get to it.
It's 23 towers, man. Maybe that's how many towers there are.
I'm trying. The Hollow Prophet sounds a lot like an Ash Ghoul, because that was a thing that was active at the time. We don't know if Pellinor was in anybody's heads before Morrowind.
Yeah. Also referring to Dagoth
That's not a way.
I wouldn't call Dagoth a prophet.
Yeah, I mean that's I'm kind of stretching there, but he's a lot more important to mention than an individual Ashghoul.
And I mean, 24 is the star wound, which is Dagothar the Mountain.
That's also what it was called with the
right.
old art. Yeah.
And they call the void in their heads is also called a star wound.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like that's kind of where we're, but I don't know why they would be 23 and 24. But
prophets come before. I mean, the prophets in the sense of a herald sort of thing, kind of a John the Baptist type sense.
Okay.
8 times 3. The wheel times 3.
Wheel times the times Elms of
Star wound.
That makes me think of continents. It makes me think of Tamriel.
Well, the world of the Tribunal is Morrowind.
Yes.
And the star wound is at the center.
Which is the star wounded east.
So is the Hollow Prophet the mountain?
Oh.
What came before Morrowind? Yeah, the mountain did come before Morrowind.
Yeah, because I mean the volcanoes are hollow, more or less. In a manner of speaking. I
like that the best. I like that the best.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That meshes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hollow Prophet. Yeah, because as the mountain starts to rumble, it tells us what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's disaster coming. That's a prophecy.
And it is the tower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Mm-hmm.
That meshes real well.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Which would again, it being the tower relates back to it being a prime number as well. So.
Yeah. Well, specifically, at least on the map, Arctic Jew asks, plus wasn't the volcano called Dagothar at one point? The mountain itself has always been called Red Mountain. It is the crater at the top that was called Dagothar. Well, I guess in Arena.
Yes.
In Arena and maybe Daggerfall, it was called Dagothar.
There's no mention of Lorkhan's heart falling and causing Red Mountain to explode, is there?
No.
I think it creates Red Mountain. So
short of the Anuad, I mean.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is I'm thinking that's the volcano was created. The volcano was created when the heart fell. Now, if I'm wrong about that, and then there was a mountain there, and then the heart fell and caused it to turn into a volcano, that makes sense too.
The heart of the world. One was satisfied the other.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the heart fell there, and then the mountain formed.
Yes,
and suddenly no one knows that where the heart is, despite the fact that a mountain has just been created that wasn't there before. But
I mean, this is
a bit
also
of a giveaway to me.
This is also at convention too, so things with time are funky.
Yeah.
Hey, Dub.
Hey, it's Dub.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Mountain forms a heart. Didn't Roll also create a small mountain? He didn't create a small mountain.
Yeah, he did.
Well, I guess well, he started with a hill and then it grew. That is true.
Yes.
Did Hral create a small mountain? I mean, he fucked a small mountain.
Yeah, well, he fucked a hill and then the hill grew and it swelled up. It got big.
Swelled with his seed.
Yes,
I love this mythology.
And then we got Riemann out of it.
It's as messed up as real mythology.
How did the Amulet of Kings get into Riemann's forehead? That's what I want to know.
Well, it was lost, so it fell back to Earth, and then Alessia recovered it. 25, the Emperor. So, okay, probably Izmir. But my question would be, why is it 25? And my answer would be, it's the numbers, the corners of the world multiplied times the corners of the world. I think it's all mortality times itself.
Yes, and the temporal myth is man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that because Izmir contains multitudes, in other words, 2 souls,
right,
minimum, then you have it's basically the corners of the world squared. So
yeah.
26, the rogue plane.
Lig.
I mean, obviously, right? It's got to be Lig.
It's got to be.
But why 26?
It's the domain of the upstart who vanishes, which links it to 13. And it's also potentially the second dominion of Lorcan if we're talking about the mortal plane in and of itself.
It's
Personally-
21 plus 5. The womb plus the corners of the world.
I think the rogue plane is Clutter Warehouse, Everything Must Go, featuring Lord Clutter Monkey.
Not sponsored in any way, shape, or form.
You've seen that test cell, right?
Nope.
In Markwood? No,
Yeah,
you got-
absolutely.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. COC, and then the teleport, and then it's Clutter Warehouse, Everything Must Go.
Oh God.
You teleport, and it's an interior cell full of interior cells, and there's an Argonian named Lord Clutter Monkey who wears full Daedric armor, and he has a unique morning star called Clutterbane. It's the only way you can get it is by cheating.
Is that actually the provisional house?
Maybe. Is that
That's the house that's filled with everything?
It is in my head from now on.
Yeah.
yeah.
27, the secret fire.
I didn't think that Vivek was wielder of the flame of Arnor.
Yeah, I was about to. Damn it, you beat me to it.
Yeah.
All right.
I wonder
I
if it
think
has
this
to do with
conflated
the
with the drowned lamp. Like in my head, the fire is the fire of
Sure.
the lamp, and I don't know that makes sense. It's just seeing them together. It always
When
makes
I-
me think of that.
when I think of the secret fire, I think of the flames of divinity that crown Vec's head.
It's also a term in alchemy. The secret
Oh.
fire is the thing that drives the interaction between the reagents, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I got nothing after that.
I think.
Yeah.
Is there room for the secret fire? Oh, to make room for the fire, yeah.
Make room for the fire.
Yeah, and when Vivek talks about the fire is mine, that's the fire they're talking about.
Very, very Promethean.
So I do think that that's what's being referenced there. I just don't know why it's 27.
Yeah, exactly.
3 nines.
9 times 3. The missing and the invisible gate.
Oh, it's the Tribunal secret source, the heart of Lorcan.
Oh, got it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Ah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
totally makes sense.
That's it. Well done.
Yeah.
Daddy likey.
28, the drowned lamp. Well, we know what the drowned lamp is.
Drowned lamps are pretty.
Um,
For those playing at home, if you aren't familiar with drowned lamps, the idea
memory.
is that, drowned lamp is something that has been forgotten. If it's been drowned, it is lost to the waters of memory.
Also associated with Sithis in.
Yeah.
Is it in the lessons or is it somewhere else that Vivek links it to Sithis? I'm sure that it's Vivek that does it.
I'm not sure.
Because I
That's part of
certainly
the
remember the
Sithis
drowned
said.
lamp being linked to Sithis.
Understand
during
that
the Amaranth
Sithis
Hunt.
still travels. Understand that
Well, I
Sithis
think-
still travels in a phosphorescent mirror of the sky, drowned and smiling.
Well,
Intermittent
well,
hopes enough to answer all the things not yet queried.
Specifically, the drowned lamps, I believe, stay lit beneath the water. That's
Yes.
one of the things. So it's like something that is trying to be forgotten,
Mhm.
or is in under threat of being forgotten.
It means a legend. It's
Yeah.
a memory that stays lit. It's still alive,
Yeah,
but it lies in memory, and people still talk about it. It can still. So like Vivek talks to Cyrus about the wrong-headed idea of becoming a drowned lamp, like moving on into history, becoming a legend. Legends are alive. They
legends never die.
legends never, but legends are said to be alive because every time the legend is retold, it mutates a little bit.
Yeah.
And it changes, and every time it's handed down by generation over generation, it becomes a little bit different every time. And so that's the reason why the lamps stay lit. So long as they're still being told, and they're still, as long as the legend is still exists, then that's why the lamp stays lit.
When I wrote the slowed creation myth, I had the
Jesus, that fucking thing.
the biggest Thros.
What a terrible day to have eyes.
Yeah, he tells he tells, I think it's Hermaeus Mora. He says, "Yeah, go drown yourself, you little bitch."
Yeah.
Basically, is what he says. Go be forgotten. You're not important.
Yep.
But shadows die twice. Yeah, there you go. Just like Giant Dad.
Yeah.
Good old Giant Dad. Okay. So why 28? 2 times the king's cough?
Forgotten art of the Thum.
7 times 4, the sword in the center and the corners of the House of Troubles.
Here's one. Is the captive sage a drowned lamp? Is it drowned underwater? What do you drowned and no longer sensing things underwater, that kind of stuff.
Well,
you're trying to make me remember the Hunt the Amaranth threads now.
I think
that was a huge conversation in those threads.
Yeah, I think I caused it. Yeah.
Yes, you did.
The captive sage is a fourth wall break. It's referring to us. We are captive, trying to figure all this out, and we're sages trying to smart our way through it. It's a reference to the reader.
It's also a reference to the author in a sense, because it's referencing the sage that is wrapped in the plaster of Paris that is giving these visions anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Is it referencing the guy who's stuck in the Ruddy Man?
That's where I'm getting what I'm getting at. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that's quite right, because the idea. Well, I just think I don't think that's quite right, because I think the argument of the drowned lamp works better when you don't take into account things like sensory deprivation, like because the drowned lamp makes perfect sense as a symbol of like memory and legend and things that are forgotten and stuff. But when you start incorporating things like sensory deprivation and mind expansion and so on, it starts to fall apart a little bit. I think you can pull threads and get there, but it feels weaker than drowned lamp is legends. It's memory. So what I would argue is the reason why it's 28 has to do with the contents of 28, because I think the captive sage is accessing legend and memory. I think that the reason why the sage is in separate sensory deprivation is so that they can access the truth that has been drowned.
Oh.
In other words, Vivek's
is the
origin.
Ruddy Man a drowned lamp?
Ooh. I mean, I would say so. I mean, if we're thinking about the Ruddy Man as the King of Lig, then
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So when Vivek puts on his water face to write the truth, is he becoming a drowned lamp? Is he going back to that lamp to access?
I think the problem is that like the water and the sea, like at points in the 36 lessons they talk about like was it the treacherous?
The metaphors for water and truth and such, I think, are in Vec's teaching more than the 36 lessons. Because the stuff about like water resembles truth by its trembling,
right,
and it's too busy. It's too busy to lie.
To lie, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Is all in Vec's teaching, as I recall. But
I kind of interpreted Waterface as a filter of memory. So speaking through a filter of things that have happened that are truth. So in that way, yes, the water is the truth. So it's like my pop filter on my mic here.
It's also inherently subjective, so absolutely not.
Oh
true.
yeah, fair enough.
The selfishness of the sea, the untrustworthy sea, and the governance of the stars, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So water in the 36 lessons kind of like it's got a, I don't know, there's a vague, as a symbol it kind of shifts around for me a lot.
Yeah.
You need something?
Does his references to water is there any way that could be his feelings about Sotha-Seal?
Ooh.
Is water references a reference to Sotha-Seal in any way? And that's why it varies, because he goes from respecting him to respecting him less. And
I'm sure that there's some reference to selfishness and the sea and Set all in the same thing. But
it seems like I remember that somewhere, but I don't remember where.
Yeah, the selfishness of the sea is Set's in Sermon 11.
Okay.
See, Set does like to collect things,
as does the sea. Everything. Yeah.
All right. Well,
just destroyed things, forgotten things, all wind up at the bottom of the sea.
But the point, so if we move on to the captive sage, we get kind of the problem with like the math of this, which is that 29, the captive sage, it's clearly like it's referring to this sermon, which is the output of the captive sage. So
right.
You don't really need math to arrive at it because that's what it is. So
isn't 29 also a prime number?
It's another prime.
Yeah.
So you can't math this. You can't maths it.
Well, you can't multiply it, but you can add stuff up. The lunar lattice plus fucking the missing shit. I don't know. The missing plus 2 tribes of the Altmer. I don't know, man. Fucking do your math. I don't know. Like 29 is a significantly large enough number that you could probably add up a whole bunch of stuff and then get like nail some stuff out of it. I don't know what the drowned lamp is or why the drowned lamp is 28. We know we have a good idea of what it is as a metaphor, but why it comes there is beyond me, frankly.
Well, the ruddy man came from the previous Kalpa.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Which is already associated with water. But
but then the scarab for 30. We know about the scarab that transforms into the new man.
Yes.
We know that this is an example of a walking way. Which one, I will tell you in a moment.
The walking ways in the corners of the world. If we're establishing the corners of the world as a facsimile for, or a synecdoche or something for men or mortality or something like that.
Well, I wonder if to walk the walking ways you must face the testing gods of. I mean, that would make sense from.
But that's the corner. That's the corners of the House of Troubles. That's 4, not 5.
Yeah, I did not in my document here. I did not actually line up the scarab that transforms into the new man, with anything. Let me.
Johnny has a tasty suggestion in chat of the womb and the missing.
I like this.
The missing equals. Oh, that does make sense. Yeah.
Yes, and so Lorcan is trying to make an incubator for a whole new world.
Yeah.
Because I'm convinced that the general metaphor for the scarab is that Mundus is the dung ball, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And therefore Lorcan is you're thinking Lorcan is the scarab pushing
who
Mundus.
is laying eggs within Mundus to fly away and leave it.
Interesting.
That's the way I've always seen it.
That would make sense from the way that I understand. But the problem is that the scarab that transforms into the new man is listed as a walking way.
Yes.
So which one?
I'm not convinced it is the Scarab that leads to the new man, because we already have We Give Ourselves to You, the Scarab frame maker. You gave us a cloak of dirt to cherish. Is already applying to Lorcan directly from the mouth of Boethia in the sermons. I'm pretty sure that's the sermons, isn't it? I know it's Boethia as the speaker. I can't remember the text.
Sermon 10.
Yes, so Vivek is already referred to...
Boethia is the speaker, yes.
Yes. So Vivek is already referred to Lorcan as the Scarab in Sermon 10.
Yeah.
So
why is Lorcan considered a walking way?
I
Is
always
that hysteria without fear, maybe?
I always assumed it referred to borrowing Lorcan's divinity. So
so
like
mantling then.
Talos does.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
necessarily mantling, but specifically like the use of the Heart of Lorcan.
Oh, yeah.
Piggybacking on Lorcan's divinity to give yourself divinity. Bootstrapping, so to speak.
Well, hysteria without fear is a dragon break.
Yep.
Fourth is mantling. Fifth is chim. Sixth is the combination of souls. First is the Prolix Tower or the hurling disc.
I think Prolix Tower is first.
Oh, it could be either.
But is the combination of souls mantling? It's been a while.
No.
That's Numidium.
No.
Okay.
It's Numidium. It's what Almsavi does in Sermon 36. It specifically says that they combine together and show the world the sixth walking way. So it's the combination of souls.
And then it also explains potentially what happened to the Dwemer. Their souls were combined to form the skin of Numidium.
Okay. 31, the listening frame. We know about this.
Yeah, the ebony listening
frame, yeah. Why 31?
Yeah, I was just looking at that. There is no reference to self-recurrent information that's turned back on itself. I mean, if there were something like mirror logicians in here, I would see that. I mean, the most I can think of is there's the paragraph that Vivek ends up blotting out with ink. The last time I heard his voice showing the slightest sign of impatience, I learned to control myself and submit to the will of others. Maybe is that metaphor for the listening frame?
Submission, maybe.
I dared to take on the sacred fire and realized there was there's sacred fire again. There was no equilibrium with the Etata. They were liars, lost roots. The most I can do is be an interpreter of the rational. That's the closest I can think of having read through this. I can't think of any other connection with the listening frame.
For those at home, what's the listening frame? It's the ebony listening frame is what Vivek and the rest of Almsavi fashion to wrap around Izmir's head to keep him from thumbing the shit out of everything.
Yep. So then he'd end up thumbing his own ears.
It's a feedback mechanism. It's something that Cyrus the Restless recovers to take on Tiber Septim when they have their sword meeting. And it basically, the Thum, like, it loops back around and it drives them crazy. Kirkbride has also said that it's also Vivek's vagina. So.
Hold up.
Which is a whole nother example of Vivek using sexual assault to solve Vivek's problems.
Yeah,
so
and it also makes you wonder how the fuck Cyrus the Restless got a hold of it.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's similar to, because man, if Felix were here, he'd be able to help out. Because what was that when we were talking about the relationship between Vivek and what was it, Shiva? I think
the lingam you're thinking of.
That thing, the device that actually represents the genitals.
Yeah, but the idea there is that the lingam does not necessarily represent the genitals; it represents the energy of Shiva. So it's the closest thing to Muatra in the real world would be the lingam. That does not include the ebony listening frame. Otherwise, they would say that Vivek fashioned Muatra into an ebony listening frame. Which I don't think is what it says.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. Everybody forgets Parvati. Yeah, true.
Did Vivek just sit on his face and
That's
tell him that he
like
loved
that's
him?
the vision I have. Yeah.
I mean,
Sit on my
yeah.
face and tell me that you love me. Yeah. So the listening frame, it gets a shout out, but I just don't. Yeah, Vivek sliding down a bar stool. I don't really get why. I don't know why it would come in for 31. I'm trying to do things with the Tribes of the Altmer or the King's Cough, but
because if the listening frame were Sermon 9, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Or if it was Sermon 28, because the King's Cough times 2 or something. You know, we can't get to times 3, which would have been perfect. But, anyway, 32, the false call. This is right. I don't know.
I'm the blight.
Something to do with the House of Troubles was where I was going, but it was 4 times 8. But...
I'm thinking about the blight and how it activates the latent Dagoth blood.
I always thought it was the call that Dagoth makes to his descendants.
Yeah, because he's saying, yes, come to divinity. I am divinity. I am all our me. If we want to go the anti-Kim route.
Yeah, but my thoughts are if we're looking at these numbers as combinations of the lower ones, which one of the lower ones is the Sharmat? There isn't one really.
No.
Twice the Daedra, that doesn't make sense.
It's 3 and 2. The Invisible Gate and an Enantiomorph.
I mean, if we are connecting that to Dagoth, if we were to go that route, then I can see how the Enantiomorph and the Invisible Gate could be a reference to Dagoth or the Sharmat specifically. Yeah, because that's the false call is a major part of the Sharmat, isn't it? The Mirak does the same thing.
Yeah.
With the dreams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's for the Baldur's Gate 3 fans out there, it's the Illithid signals.
I'm just curious about 4 times 8, because I just can't get that out of my head, because the corners of the House of Troubles and the wheel, it's the world of the House of Troubles is how I'm interpreting that.
That could work.
Well, although the world is also 5. So
false call. Because with 8, because the 8, it's the wheel or the 8 givers. So it is the Aedra or the Earthbones.
Okay, so it's the Aedra and the House of Troubles. That's a bit more awkward.
Yeah. Unless maybe it's referring to the fictitious nature of the Arbus.
Possibly.
That could work.
That I think is a little lazy on my part. Anytime there's a fourth wall break, like
oh, you mean fictitious?
Like myself for bringing that up earlier.
Oh, you mean fictitious? Like we're in a game? No.
Or the idea of Kim being yes, this.
Well,
this,
in fairness,
yes, I do.
If you go to how Vivek at least got the word of Chim, then he goes to Molag Bal, to one of the House of Troubles.
True, but is that a false call?
True.
There's false, and then there's a bad call, but we're talking about a false call.
False. Yeah.
Weird thought that just occurred to me.
I do like that it's Dagoth calling out to his people.
Yeah.
I just realized both Molag Bal and Jubal are tunnel buddies. They both banged Vivek. They're tunnel buddies.
Never gonna unlearn that.
Was Molag Bal present at the bachelor party?
No.
I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, the ex-boyfriend's here.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Don't hand him the mic. Don't let him do a speech.
No, the Devil Sea. They got married. The Devil Sea.
Hmm? Oh, the divorcee, yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, yeah, the ex-husband.
The
or
ex-husband.
ex-wife.
That's true.
Yeah, the
Vivek,
false
you
call
bitch, I want my hoodie back.
The false call being related to Dagothar and
Seems the most solid one yet.
Yeah.
the divine broadcast, as he calls it.
The anticipations, 3 and 3.
That's obvious, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
3 and 3, the anticipations and Almsby.
Yep.
34.
34, the lawless grammar. Okay. This
Which is funny because grammar is a set of laws, so to speak.
Right,
Yes.
but that's, was it the sermon 25? No. 26?
For what?
Yes, the pocket cabal
Pokemon!
is the lawless grammar.
Is it?
Yeah,
Well, because grammar only appears once in the sermons.
I know. But it's, if you think about it, it's chaotic language. Right?
Okay.
Okay.
So they go absolutely apeshit and start... Wait, there was something else that was lawless grammar. It was... I remember. Yeah. Wait. No. As immune to spears. It wasn't. It was yes,
Hendris-
Treasurewood. No, not Treasurewood sword.
Hendris has found us a reference to lawless grammar elsewhere.
Ooh.
In How Beautiful You Are That You Do Not Join Us. Which settle for the equations
Fashion like
that
lawless
last.
grammar.
Yeah. Settle for the equations that last and not those that pass on to the west. For there you shall find the wicked and thought slendered, passing as they are from the all-dreamt jewel, not elder, without chim, none possessed of any of the secret syllables, without love of ancient libraries, and in an unsafe house, every last one, fashioned like the lawless grammar. Open brackets 34,2. Though that is only more deaf witness to the roads out of Veloth.
Because the two
is
I mean, if we go and look at what word that references in Sermon 34, I think it's Vivek, isn't it?
Okay.
The second word is Vivek.
Yes.
Then Vivek. Yep. So I wonder, I mean, could we, I guess that wouldn't be consistent because we haven't been doing that for the others, looking at the word that's referenced in the related sermon
No.
and
I was
seeing
just
how
kicking
that
myself
fits
for that.
into.
Yeah.
We haven't been doing that, so I don't want to start a precedent with that now. Unless we think it's a good precedent.
Yeah, the fact that it's a
whole
direct
cast again.
Well, it's a direct reference to Sermon 29, the lawless grammar 34:2.
Yeah.
Why is Vivek quoting her own sermon?
Fashion.
Oh, Vivek does that all the time.
Oh, no, wait. How beautiful is Vivek, the king of rape, sermon 12, Vivek's gift to the company of days. Oh, okay. This is something that Vivek gave to Molag Bal in sermon 12.
What is?
So sermon 12, Vivek gave Molag Bal 2 poems.
Yeah.
This is the second one. How beautiful you are that you do not join us is the second one.
Yes.
Oh, that's okay.
Right.
Okay, so Vivek's talking about the West. About love for ancient libraries in an unsafe house. Everyone, the houses are fashioned like lawless grammar.
Sloppily,
Ooh,
maybe?
yeah. Grammar that does not follow rules.
Yeah, you don't follow the rules of grammar. It's generally seen as sloppy language. It's not.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, I think. Lawless grammar, lack of discipline, maybe? Is that
Possibly. Do we have any indication of that in the sermon itself? Okay, so going to fight Golgamore Jill.
safe house otherwise?
No, that doesn't give us anything. And Nesis is, or Narcissus is not sloppily built necessarily. Oh, hang on.
Unless it's a ribbing at poor city planning.
Yeah. Yeah, Necron.
Nesis doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have a town square. Why the fuck is the trader way over there?
Well,
So,
that's like that's
and yes, Johnny, passing into the west does sound like a Lord of the Rings reference.
It also sounds like a Journey to the West reference.
Yeah. And now I just
well,
have
okay,
going around in my head.
yeah. So 34 is tough. 35 is also hard. Prison shirt. The first thing I thought of was the shell that they wrapped around the sage.
Yeah.
You could also think of like a restraining device that you use to tie up crazy people. I've thought long and hard about the last sections of Sermon 29 over the many years I've been doing this. Yeah, the prisoner could be the prisoner. Could be just a reference in general to the prisoner.
We have the sword of the center and the corners of the world as the multipliers, 7 by 5.
Yeah, because the prisoner is the one who's going to do the division in the destruction, the violence in the tower. So that does make some sense.
Yeah.
And Sotha Seal has that whole ending dialogue in the Clockwork City quest about you being the prisoner and him being the prisoner and seeing the bars of your cage and all of that.
Yeah.
So is the mortal flesh that you're wearing your prison suit?
Yeah, it could be. I'm happy to go that direction. Yeah.
Yes, and the 5th is also the number of the limit of this world, which is also the limit of mortality, etc. So yeah. That all sounds like it's working nicely for a bunch of connotations. And the sword in the center does not hold, again, also referencing mortality.
Yeah.
So.
And 36 as the hours, it's the Book of Hours. It's a prayer
day and
book.
a half.
Yep.
36 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how a day and a half is important.
It's Vivek's Book of Hours is how he defeats the first monster, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
But arguably the 36 lessons are the Book of Hours.
Well, it talks about the Book of Hours in.
And Almalexia says that by the Vivek says I'm going to go out and kill 9 children.
Yep.
And she says you'll only find 8 because 1 is already destroyed by your decision to create the Book of Hours. And he says that he knows that means himself.
Oh, yeah, okay. In Sermon 31, the Book of Hours.
Right, is what Vivek's writing in. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So one can assume that Sermon 36 is the Book of Hours. Why was Vivek able to beat up a child with something that they were writing while it was happening? Man, welcome to the 36 lessons.
I'm also convinced that there's a section of Vivek's teaching that is called the Book of Hours.
Yes. It's part of Vivek's teaching, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which means it's not the sermons.
Yeah.
So my take on Alexia saying that the child would be destroyed and Vivek saying that he understood that to mean himself. I assume that Vivek is giving birth to the new Vivek. The current Vivek is going to be destroyed at some point. And so in a sense, he's birthing himself, and part of how he's doing that is through the pomegranate.
Does that make Vivek her own mother?
And that also links, I think, to when you look at the way that it's taught, the Book of Hours is talked about. It says concerning the dragon break, and the dragon break that Vivek was involved with was the Red Moment.
Yep.
Which is the battle with New Medium, which is Sermon 36.
Okay.
You don't sound overly convinced.
Well, like I said, my biggest problem with 29 is that things get really difficult towards the end. So, I'm surprised. I thought we were going to be doing this for 2 days, but we actually got through it in one. It was a long episode, but we did it.
Yeah, no, it took 2 hours.
2 and 15. Yep. So, tomorrow, what's next time we're doing 30?
Yes.
Where we get to watch Vivek kill a perfectly innocent person, and we do City Face, and good times, and the Ethos Knife. Which is supposed to be Keening. Okay, I guess.
Yeah. In the meantime, if you do have any questions, drop us an email at selectiveslorecast@gmail.com. Would be fab to have any of your thoughts on all this stuff as we kind of plow through it. So stuff to add to how everything goes.
Oh, Zells, you have a wonderful YouTube channel. Do you want to plug that real quick?
Yes.
Fantastic. Sure. Yeah. The YouTube channel is Tamriel Tidbits, and I do some lore and gameplay stuff and general silliness.
Yep.
I already subscribed.
Me too. So everybody go check that out. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.